Hello and welcome to another short educational video from New Century Planning Associates. My name is Bob Ryerson. I'm the founder of New Century, and I am pleased to have my long-term partner, Louis Torrero, who's a CPA, here with me today to talk about...
Thank you, Bob. And we're going to talk about inflation.
Inflation.
A topic that's been in the news quite a bit.
Well, you know, Louis, we had a really nice run in this country, decades, where inflation really wasn't much of an issue. But the last year or two...
Yes, now it's at 42-year highs. 42
right,
year
so
highs.
let's take a look. So this is a few months old, but we haven't seen... So I should mention, the government is telling us that inflation right now is running at 7, 8, 9%. I don't see a lot of 7s and 8s on this board, do you?
No, I don't. It's a lot higher than 7, 8%. But I also want to point out this to you, that the bottom right is kind of odd.
Right, so there's an anomaly going on. We don't have really time to go into it, except for the fact that if everything's at 42-year highs, how could gold and silver and platinum, which are precious metals and which have had a 3,000 or 4,000 year history of being proven inflation protection vehicles, how could they be negative?
That's my question. So how can you explain that, please?
Well, in a nutshell, two things. The dollar, ironically, even though we're 31 trillion in debt, you know, I should mention, we hit 30 trillion on February 1st of 22, and 8 months later, we hit 31 trillion. So if you think of a hockey stick, we're up on the handle of the hockey stick now. This is not sustainable. 31 trillion, this is not a number that's ever going to be paid back. So in the face of that, how could gold and silver be negative? Well, the dollar, ironically, despite the fact that we're 31 trillion in the hole, in terrible shape, the rest of the world's in worse shape, and the dollar is very strong for now. And we think that's going to change. And the other thing, which we have not enough time to get into, is this is intentional. This cannot be, you cannot have silver down like this when it should be, they should be in the upper left and they're done bottom right. So this is an intentional suppression effort in our view. Why? Because a rising gold and silver price implies bad things about the paper money, and they need everybody to believe in the paper money. I should also mention, Louis, that we know that gold and silver are at highs all over the world, but not where we
here
live,
in the U.S.A.
not in dollar bill, right?
No.
So anyway.
Isn't that like another tax in a sense?
It is. So if inflation is 9% for the year, and you're spending 9% more, it's like you're paying another 9% tax. You've lost 9% of your buying power. It is another tax. And even worse than 1 year is, what if there is an elevated level of inflation over time? What does that do, particularly for retirement budget, right? So this is important.
So what if, for example, my retirement budget today is $100,000, but in the future, what if inflation is, let's say, 6, 7%?
So here's what this means. Whatever your number is, could be 50,000, 150. If you decide today, you know, I think I'm good on 100. The problem is, if we look out 10 years, if inflation is even 5 or 6%, it's now going to take 163,000 or 179, God forbid, to equate to how you were living back in 2023 on 100,000. So the question becomes, where is this extra money going to come from? If we don't plan to give you guaranteed income boost, if we don't build this into the income plan, if we don't address the inflation factor, where's all that money going to come from?
So that's the key question. Where will we get that money from?
So some ideas, some solutions, is if the country is intentionally or unintentionally destroying the buying power of the dollar over time, maybe more rapidly now, we've got to get, in our opinion, we've got to get some money out of the dollar. So we want to build in some inflation boosts with some guaranteed income, easier said than done. But also we want to get, there's some alternatives, some inflation alternatives. So I-bonds are an idea. What's an I-bond?
That's very good. Inflation bond, an inflation treasury bond.
Right, so these are treasury savings bonds, but they're I-bonds and they're tracking inflation and they're paying very high now. We haven't seen these numbers from the government guaranteed in a long time. The problem is you can't put a lot of money in them, but they're very attractive. We talked about precious metals. I notice you're wearing a precious metals tie.
Yes, this has for many, many years, decades, even since the beginning of time, has been a very, very good inflation
But gold
hedge.
and silver are not working right now, though.
Not right now, but
we're big fans right now.
Yes.
Timber, commodities, foreign real estate, foreign stocks, foreign bonds, money out of the dollar. Fine art. It turns out that fine art, and not many advisors I think even talk about this, but if we can get some of your funds into fine art is like 57 Chevys and like farmland is another one, never goes down. So these are nice alternatives to get some money out of the dollar. Even for a little speculation, cryptos, a lot of people are negative on them. If you're negative on them, skip them. But the idea is there's lots of alternatives that can do very well for you.
Earlier, we talked about the 3 buckets. I don't have a whole lot of money, nor do many individuals in bucket 1. But individuals have a lot of money. Most of America has a whole lot of money in bucket number 2. Can these items be purchased with money in bucket number 2?
Yes, all of these can be purchased, not easily, right? Some of these are a little more difficult. They're not, you can't go to the big name brokerage firms, big IRA custodians. They just want to do stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. But there are IRS approved alternative custodians who will do all of these different things for you. And you can get some money into some very interesting, we don't have up here, but private equity, private debt. So it can be done. And these can all be owned in bucket 2 IRAs or bucket 3 Roth IRAs, no problem.
Yes, and we're going to have another video on alternative custodians, is that correct?
We are. And so the idea is let's build in some intentional boosts in income. Again, easier said than done, but that, if you looked at that, this previous concern here, where is that money going to come from? We've got to address that. One of the ways is to get money out of the dollar. And then I hate to even mention this, but
right, it's a very ugly concept. We don't know if it can happen here, but what does this mean, and does this have an implication for us?
Well,
hyperinflation.
Yeah, it hasn't happened here. It's happened all around the world. Hyperinflation is a horrific situation. I think other than a war, it's the worst thing that can happen to a country. It's when prices are rising daily, when the faith in the currency, the paper currency, has failed. This happened in Germany between the wars. They were sweeping the Deutschmarks into the street. They were worthless. More recently, this is an actual picture from Venezuela a couple years ago. Venezuela used to be this rich country, lots of oil revenues. Oil prices fell. They kept printing money. And now this is the bolivar, 14 million bolivars to buy a chicken if you can find the chicken. So the problem is, how does the butcher, Louis, count to 14 million bolivars?
He doesn't. He weighs the chicken, he weighs the bolivars, and then he determines if the amount you're paying is correct.
Weighing the money, not good.
Weighing the money, yes.
So this is, let's hope this never happens here. We're not predicting it, but to be honest with you, we are doing some dangerous things. We mentioned the hockey stick before. You can't add $1 trillion every 8 months. This is crazy. So getting money out of the dollar makes some sense. We're not trying to be alarmists here. Even if this never happens, which we hope it doesn't, you should still hedge because we have elevated inflation. If it stays that way over the next 5 or 10 years, you're going to need more income.
And so how much money should we should create a hedge, but how much should that hedge be?
Well, normally the good news is it doesn't historically take much. 8, 10, 12, 15%, 10 or 15% hedge against inflation typically protects the other 85 or 90. Good point. Okay. So it's not like you have to commit 50% of your money to these alternative ideas. A small percentage usually does the trick. Good point. But it's one of the main pillars of retirement planning, and we take it more seriously today, yes. and it's something that we really have to look at. So if you want more information, because this is not maybe so obvious, particularly these lists of different investments, some of them are very attractive. They may be the best performing assets in the next 10 years. If the paper doesn't work well, maybe this stuff does. It's happened before, right? 1966 to 82. So if we do go through inflationary times, you'll need some of this. Let us know if you need help. We have good information on the website, but give us a call. We can help.
Thank you so much for the information.
Thank you, sir.